there was Shirley Roberson. You heard a little bit of her yesterday, and after we met Shirley, she became a constant presence, and her story of the blue chair has become a very critical part and a key component of our C-TAC narrative.
The blue chair, it just happened to be blue, but I was actually concerned that I had been given a test that would show what medications that I could take that would be most effective for me. And the doctor and I had gone over in detail what type of cancers I had, and not only the medications, but what other treatments were there listed that might be helpful. And when I got home, because I always make a request, and I suggest most people do this, get your tests, even though you don't understand them, go through them, get your medical dictionary out, and do the best you can to understand who you are and what you're dealing with within yourself, as well as expect someone else to help you, like the doctor. So I was doing that, and I looked at what my information I had in my hand, and it was nothing that the doctor has said. I think, oh my gosh, I'm leafing through this, and I'm like, he said I had about a good chance. I mean, he said I had a lot of options. This looks like I have about 3. You know, what's going on here? So by the time I got back to him, I was a nervous wreck and just concerned and wanted to ask him 150 questions, but I, held off. I didn't call him, which was the temptation, call him up like, do you understand what you told me and what I'm looking at? But I held off, got to the office, and another doctor came in, and he said, Ms. Roberson. I said, yes. He says, I have your folder, and I'm going to share with you. I said, no, I need to ask you some questions first. And he says, no, I have your answers right here. If you'll give me a chance, I said, no. And he started talking, and he was telling me the exact thing that my doctor had already told me the month before. And I'm thinking, yeah, you say that, but that's not what this says. So I asked him, I said, please, let me explain to you what, Miss Roberson, I have your information. This is you. I have you here. And I said to myself, now he's just gotten on my nerve by saying that was me. I said, that is not me. That is a folder with some sheets of paper in it. I'm trying to tell you what's bothering me. And he said, no. You must listen. You must understand. And he just kept talking. And so I said, you know what? This isn't working. You see that blue chair over there? Go sit in it. And he said, excuse me? I said, the blue chair, do you see it? He says, oh yeah. He says, we're going to play a game? I said, it's not a game, but if you want to call it that. So he goes over and he plops in the chair and starts to talk. I said, no, you don't understand this. As long as you sit in the chair, I talk. You listen. When you get out of the chair, you can talk, but not until.
Don't you love Shirley? She taught us to have voice. She taught us to listen and take the time and understand the perspectives first, foremost, and always. So to give this special time both focus and direction, and many thanks to our patient advocates, we're pleased to welcome to the stage the faculty member of the Seminary Consortium for Urban Pastoral Education and C-TAC Board Member, the Reverend Yvonne Delk.
Good morning. I'm honored to speak to you for a moment as an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ, as an elder who is celebrating 83 years of life, and as a member of the board of C-TAC. There are people who enter our lives for a reason, and then there are those whose impact on us will be for all seasons. Shirley Roberson's life and witness in C-TAC has been both. I believe that the heartbeat of C-TAC is to create a movement that will transform healthcare so that all Americans will receive comprehensive, quality, person and family-centered care, consistent with their goals, their values, and that honors their very dignity. We live in a nation that continues to be fragmented and broken and divided and polarized by racism and sexism and classism and homophobia. C-TAC decided to make a bold move in the midst of all the isms and to try to find a way to transform the very way that we really care for one another. How are we willing to walk with each other and respect one another and honor one another? So it launched a movement focused on change and transformation in order to deliver to all Americans not only the highest quality of care that they need, but that they actually deserve. But a bold move requires a bold approach. So C-TAC created a table and placed that table right in the midst of what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the most shocking and inhumane systems of inequality, that of healthcare. It was a carefully designed table to create room and space for those who were willing to lead with care, with courage, with compassion, and with conviction. We operated with the belief that if our mission and our movement is not adequately defined, our objectives will not be adequately achieved. So C-TAC created space at the table for those who not only had a heart for the movement, but had a stake in the outcome of the movement. So seats were provided for all of us. Healthcare professionals and providers, faith-based leaders, patient and consumer advocacy groups, community leaders, policymakers, and especially a seat for those who were living with serious illness. It's here that Shirley Roberson enters. She takes her seat at the table, and she now leaves us with a legacy that informs our message and our mission. In a world where race and gender and class can interrupt or disrupt your life and get you off course, Shirley was clear. She was centered. She knew who she was and whose she was. Her very presence demanded your attention. Not only did she take her seat at the table, she had the audacity to introduce another chair to the table. It was what we now call the blue chair. And the chair became a sign that it's time to interrupt business as usual. It's time to really connect with one another, to care about one another, and to simply be human with one another. The blue chair became Shirley's way of naming herself at the table. It was a reminder that she mattered. The cancer in her body was only one part of who she was. Shirley entered in the fullness of her existence as a practitioner, a professional, an artist, and also as a patient living and surviving with a life-threatening disease. But we were clear that the illness did not define her. It created something much deeper and bolder in her. She entered in the full humanity of her personhood and her story and her experience. And Shirley's blue chair became a symbol that when we come to the table, we come in the fullness of who we are, mind, body, and spirit. We're all sisters and brothers at the table, connected by our care for one another and our commitment to work for a system where we all matter. And when we enter, we honor each one's story. We honor each one's dignity, and we take the time to greet and celebrate each other in the fullness of who we are and what we bring to the table. Shirley's blue chair became a symbol that her voice mattered. It's the place where you're able to speak about what you see from where you've been sitting. It's the place where you share your story, your experiences, your hopes, your pain, what you value, and what you need. And it's the place that we engage in honest and open truth-telling and truth-facing. Shirley's blue chair became a symbol of taking the time to recognize that not only do I matter, but that you matter as well. It's the place where we listen to one another, where we hear one another. I see you, I hear you. It's the place where we can be genuine with one another. We see each other not as competitors that's getting in each other's way, but as companions on the way of life together. It's the place where we can affirm that I am because you are, and because you are, I can be also. It's the place where trust begins. So Shirley's blue chair is also a symbol of hope, hope in the midst of all the pressing things that are all around us. Hope is believing that in spite of the evidence of all the negative realities, that it's possible to change, and then engaging everything you've got in order to watch the evidence just fade away. Hope is believing that the way things are does not mean that they have to remain that way forever. Hope is believing that in spite of an incurable disease in your body, you can grow and flourish. Shirley Roberson was and continues to be a living witness that in the midst of the systemic diseases that continue to be present in our nation, in our culture, we can take our seats. And we can change the flow of the river, from hate to love, from despair to hope, from injustice to justice. Shirley's blue chair is a symbol of her revolutionary presence in our midst. It's a reminder that you can disrupt the flow of the cancer cells in our nation by living as if what we do matters. It is possible to transform a system so that it can deliver quality, personal, family goals, values that honors dignity. Well, Shirley is now a part of the spirit world. And to the spirit, there's no beginning or ending. But there is an African proverb that says, as long as there is one among us that can call Shirley by name, she will always be in our midst. Not only do we have her spirit, our memories of her, but we have a blue chair. The blue chair, a symbol that inspires revolutions. The blue chair, a symbol of the place where definitions will not contain us and limitations will not imprison us. A place where we who have gathered here can press on against the wind, doing the very work that our souls require. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage the Chief Executive Officer of C-TAC, Mr. John Broyles.
When we were last in person 2 years ago, and Shirley was with us, we launched a moonshot on behalf of 12 million people living with serious illness. And we said when we launched that 12 million begins with one. And Shirley was our one. She was our inspiration. I'd like to ask the board to stand, the board of directors, if we could see you out there. So, Shirley was one of us. She was a board member. She was an advocate. And then I'd like everybody to stand. Everybody, come on. Shirley was one of you. She was C-TAC. She was a C-TAC member. And I'd encourage everybody to think about legacy as you hear this next panel. And the interesting thing about legacy is it comes from the word to entrust someone with something. And you give that, and you receive and you give. What have you received, and what will you give? So thank you. I'd like to welcome to the stage our panel, Reverend Tyrone Pitts, Edith Clifton, and Stacey Roberson. Give them a big round of applause, guys. And Tyrone, do you want to? Okay. So Edith, welcome. It's been a long journey to this stage, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
I'm going to ask each of you to reflect on the question of who Shirley was and what has she given you. And I'll let you speak for how you knew Shirley and what she's given you. So Edith, please.
Shirley was my best friend for nearly 30 years at least. We met under rather, unusual circumstances, but immediately I recognized that this was a very brilliant, intelligent, strong woman. At the point I met her, she was taking care of her mother, who was in the final stages of cancer. She had 2 teenage children that she was raising. Her husband had had an untimely death, so there was Shirley taking care of 3 people and also running a business. And that's how we met. I had to go to her, and we did our little business. And then I said, well, I'm going to leave you, Shirley. I'm going to go to lunch. She said, where are you going to go? I said, well, I'm going to go. I want to go to lunch too. I was very shocked because I had just met Shirley. And we went, and we had a 4-hour lunch. We couldn't stop talking. And ever since that day, it was just like we were just meant to be. I want to just jump ahead to 2008, and it was election night. And we were all waiting with bated breath to see who had won. And when it was announced that Barack Obama had won, I mean, it was just joy all over the place. And then Shirley quietly told me that she had just received her diagnosis of cancer. So there we are in the midst of elation over the election, and yet I'm hearing that my best friend has been told that she has cancer. You can imagine. And I remember telling my brother this. I said, you know, Shirley, my brother is a minister. He has had a large church in Detroit. He said, doctors cannot predict what's going to happen to Shirley. She has a strong faith, and we are strong people, and you just let her know we're going to be praying for her. And I carried that in my heart because Shirley she was not crying over it. She was not fearful of it, but it was a heavy thing, we know. But every day of our lives from that moment on, I gave thanks to the Lord for a new day. We went on trips together. We did many things. We went on a couple of vegan cruises. We thought we were vegetarians at the time. And we did enjoyable things, but then there were those moments of crisis where I believe you'll hear from Edith and Stacey. They had to literally take her to emergency to the hospital. And we would never know, is this it? Mm-hmm. But the Lord gave us miracle after miracle. They say, I know you miss Shirley. I said, I miss her every day. But I give thanks to the Lord for 12 years of her life that perhaps a weaker person or a different person would never have had.
Thank you. Stacey, can I ask you the same question? And thank you so much for being here. I know.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank all of you. The biggest thing that I think my mom left as a legacy for myself and for others was just a fighting spirit and strength. She fought, and she fought hard all of her life for everything and for many things, but mostly for others. And she taught us to fight for yourself always, because you may not always have someone to fight for you. And you may not always have someone in your corner. If you do, that's great, but if you don't, then you have to care enough about yourself to fight for yourself. And then you always have to care enough to be that person in someone else's corner if they don't have someone else. And it's just as important, if not more important, to fight for someone else and to be in someone else's corner if they don't have that. The nasty N-word in our house was no. And you never take no for an answer. Unless it was from her, I guess. But you never take no for an answer. No, when you hear the word no, she said, then you should hear challenge accepted. And I live by that, and I try to instill that in my children. When someone tells you no, if it's something that you believe in and it's something that you want bad enough, just make that resolve that, you're gonna tell me yes. I'm gonna get that yes, and I don't care how long it takes, and I don't care what I have to do, but the answer will be yes. And I think cancer tried to tell her no, and she said yes to life, and she continued to fight. And as far as I'm concerned, she won. And through this organization and through other people and through yourself, she's gonna continue to win and keep winning, and others are going to win because she refused to say no. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Tyrone.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Edith, and thank you, Stacey. You have reminded us all of the value of Shirley and her importance to C-TAC, but also her faith. I remember Shirley, John, as an angel. There are certain moments in history when God allows angels to be a part of us.
Yes.
And in every faith tradition, there are messengers who represent angelic forces of change. And Shirley was such a person to me personally. I remember when I first met her and we talked, this is over 10 years ago, with Edith and with SEMATAC. She said to me after our conversation, "Are you for real?" And I had to think about that because I wondered. Based on her comments and based on her challenges to me, I began to wonder whether or not I was for real. Wow. And throughout our life together, those years when we wrestled with faith, and we wrestled with what the impossible was and what the possible was, I still remain challenged as a person of faith, whether or not what I do is for real. And so I thank Shirley for not only her faith and her commitment to being a product of change and equity, but I thank her for her impact on me and other members of the clergy and other members of the faith tradition, who she really helped us to understand that God was better and bigger than all of us, and that nothing is impossible if you believe. And so, Stacey, I thank you for how much you loved her.
Oh, yes.
And how much she loved you.
Oh, yes.
I remember those conversations that we had about you. And Edith, you were more than a friend and a sister. You were also a faith companion to her, who walked with her and supported her. And C-TAC, we have Shirley's in each one of our organizations. We have angels that are part of each one of our organizations. And Shirley's challenge to us right now is to look at the angels within our organizations to really be clear about what it means to deal with individuals who are struggling and challenged by advanced illness. Look at the angels inside.
So Tyrone, you got the blue chair treatment, sounds like.
I got more than the blue chair. The blue chair was easy.
I got the blue chair treatment.
The blue chair was easy.
We should do a show of hands of who got the blue chair treatment with Shirley. I would be talking about Medicare, Medicaid, this, policy, this, that, and I would be, well down the road, and Shirley would say, let's go back to the start. What are you talking about? Right. And how does it benefit me?
Right.
How does it benefit me? And I was sitting through all the discussions, and that just rings in my head on a loop.
Yeah.
How does it benefit me?
Yeah.
There's something that Stacey, two things that Stacey, you share with your mom that I've picked up on. One is you're a terrific storyteller. I know you don't think so.
No.
We have witnesses.
Right.
And the second is you're an artist.
Yes.
Yes.
So can you tell us about what is this?
That's a blue chair.
And where'd it come from?
Well, when I was asked to do a chair at the last minute,
That's a third thing you share with your mom.
I said, well, let's see what we can do. And I have a storage unit full of chairs full of chairs and good intentions. And I tried to find actually one of my favorite ones, and one that I think would be mom approved. And this particular chair I had was special to me just because it's big, and I don't have anything that of this size, and it's also an antique, and it's also extremely sturdy. And I wanted to do something that I thought my mom would approve of and that she would like, in addition to it just being blue, that is her favorite color, blue. And yeah, that's what I came up with. This is her blue chair.
Great job.
And I like it because it is welcoming. It's welcoming, and the blue chair is not a penalty. It's an opportunity to engage with our own why. Whether you're a doctor, nurse, a pastor, you run a nonprofit, you work at a nonprofit, whatever you do to help, at the end of the day, patients like Shirley, the blue chair is an opportunity to reconnect with why you're doing it. And so thank you. And there's one member of Shirley's dream team, to use Diane Smalley's reference, that's not on stage right now, that I'd like to bring on, Edith Roberson, Shirley's grandson, and Stacey's son. So please. So Edith, I'd love for you to give us your reflections on Shirley and what she's given you.
So first off, John, thank you for having us here, and all of you. I'm like going through it over there because this is a great thing. I really appreciate you guys coming out and the videos and the nice words and all of it. I genuinely feel it in my heart. I appreciate the warmth you guys are giving me. My thoughts on Shirley. Well, first off, I'm Edith Roberson. I'm grandson. Let me introduce myself. That's how she introduces me. But with what my grandma taught me, like my blue chair, so to speak, like you said, who got the blue chair treatment?
Yeah, that's right.
I've had the privilege of being raised by her. So I've been getting told blue chair things my whole life. You know, she's been, I remember I'm just asking her, like, I'm like building a cell like blood cells or whatever. And then she tells me how, like, you know, imagine like the red blood cells are carrying packages of oxygen, and then the white blood cells are like the ninjas, and they come down. And I'm like, Grandma, I don't need to go to science class right now. Thank you. I was like, thanks. I'm already good. You just passed my test. You have no idea. So she describes things very visually and beautifully, and things that are tools that you don't really even know are tools until, you know, you're just hearing a story about some ninja white blood cell and the killer T's are buff. But then when you're taking your science final, you know the answers, right? She's like helping you along the way, and you don't even know how she's helping you yet. So with the blue chair specifically, what that means to me from like a perspective of growing up with Grandma, and I'm gonna call her Grandma, you know who I'm talking about. So the blue chair is to, one, take a second to be humble, take a second to have empathy, always stop. Like you mentioned it a little earlier, but there is no profession you're good in. There is you can be the top military official, the top doctor, the top boxer, the top anything you want. You are never too smart to not ask, where can I help? You can never be too much of a genius to not even ask where to help or how to help the person you're talking to. You should always be down to earth like that. The blue chair specifically, Grandma's been telling me things like that for a while. She's a fighter, and she's raised me to be a fighter as well. And the beautiful thing that Grandma did for me was she taught me how to use strength, like what Mom and Edith said. She was a fighter and will fight for what she believed in. So she taught me, she's like, Ennis, you can do anything. Any enemy in your way, you trample, and if you believe in it and it's truly right and you're being kind, don't let anybody tell you anything. But the next step after that is, hey, sometimes they don't know. The blue chair, it's not just stop there and listen to the patient. No, the blue chair is, how do I explain this? When you sit in the blue chair and you calm yourself down, and I see you like, okay, I'm getting out of my script, I'm listening to the person in front of you. Grandma would teach me, she's like, you know, they don't know. The person who is your enemy, like, might not even know like that. And the next part of the blue chair is not just you messed up, you were neglecting the patient. The blue chair is also like, hey, like, I get it from your point of view. I get it from the other person's point of view. Like, you're busy, you got, let's say you're a school nurse, all right? You're a school nurse, and you got all these kids, and they're all complaining about headaches, so you just give them an ice pack, you know? And you got 34 kids, 52 kids, all complaining about ice pack, wine, or whatever, and you're like, okay, here's an ice pack, here's an ice pack, kid. But it's like, some of those kids have headaches because they're stressed. Some of those kids have headaches because they got hit in the head. Some of those kids have headaches because they're lying. Some of those kids have headaches because they're pressure at home, and those differences are life and death when we grow up. Those little differences of neglect mean a lot, right? And from the school nurse perspective, or from the professional perspective, or from the person who is our enemy, you know, the person whose neglect is threatening to my life, I said this in the military. I was in the military, I was in the service. I said this to my master sergeant. I had a point and I was right. I was right. And I was right, you know, and master sergeant, whoever, they're not listening to airmen. I'm a little kid complaining about a headache, and like, I was justified though, but he didn't know that. He's like, I've been listening to people like you complain, whatever. I don't care. And I get it. I'm saying I get it. But I don't care if 62 people came up here complaining about nothing. It is your job to listen to that 63rd. That is your job. That's not my job. That makes no sense why Grandma has to be empathetic enough to understand where you're coming from, teach you what you're doing, handle her own emotions, and then do you know how much she's doing before the person across from her can even value that they need to listen? And the last thing after that is after all that, after you're wrong and after your mistakes, and these little mistakes trickle down to affect people's lives back there, Grandma would teach me, she's like, Ennis, you do whatever you can to knock that person down and pick up everything else you can do, and you know what you better do afterwards? Help that person in that blue chair that you knocked down. They didn't know. They could have been stressed at work. Grandma didn't just teach me how to have strength and how to fight. She taught me how to pick up the pieces along the way and how to teach people along the way, and that even the person that you're beating doesn't know either. They're a victim too. We all, we're all one. She truly believed that. So to me, if you're gonna ask what Grandma's legacy is to me, and the biggest tool I suppose she gave me, because I've got, Grandma's told me lots of blue chair stuff. I got the scoop. I got the secret formula, so to speak. But what she left to me was, it's a perfect system if you're constantly looking behind you, and you're constantly looking at the little guy, and you're constantly learning what the little guy is saying all the time, and all of Grandma's free time. The second she could feel like she wasn't in pain, she wanted to teach other people, so she was always looking behind her and not afraid to beat the guy above her. So what kind of system is that? Eventually, if everyone has that mindset of look at the lowest person and be willing to teach the highest person, if every single person had that mindset, the world would be saved. And that's what she left me to start along with that.
Well said.
Isn't there just so much wisdom in this panel? Let's give them another round of applause, guys. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask, you guys just stay put for a minute. I'm going to ask our co-chair, co-founder, Bill Novelli, to come on stage to help us answer the Shirley question. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about this? So this is looking into the future here. Thank you, Bill.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
David Jones, I know you're here. David Jones and I are not just C-TAC board members, but we co-chair the fundraising task force. And I have decided, David, that we should make Ennis a C-TAC fundraiser. This guy, he could make a master sergeant sit in the blue chair. That was powerful, that was inspiring, that was a great discussion. And I want to thank our board member, Edith Clifton. I want to thank the Reverend Tyrone Pitts, Shirley's daughter, Stacey. Stacey, we saw how proud you are of your mom. And Ennis, be prepared, Ennis. We're going to make you go to work. And thanks to the Reverend Yvonne Delk, our C-TAC board member, for her reflections to kick all this off. And John Broyles, thanks to you for bringing all this together and for your commitment to make Shirley Roberson's memory a vibrant part of C-TAC. And I think you see now that Shirley and what she stood for is at the very heart of our C-TAC mission. We were so proud to have Shirley on our board of directors. She was our voice and essence of patient empowerment. And as we heard this morning, she loved life. And Shirley was a woman of courage. And despite her illness, or maybe because of it, she wanted to be heard. She wanted to be the author of her life. And we all heard the story. We saw the video. Her admonition to a young clinician was, go sit in the blue chair and listen to me. And when he had finished listening, he knew Shirley as a whole person, not just a patient on a chart. And that story has become fable in C-TAC's world. It's our guiding light. I really appreciated my friend Charlotte Ye's opening remarks this morning. She is a real clinician. And our Shirley story is to honor all clinicians, those of you in this room and all clinicians across the country who dedicate your lives and your careers to your patients. You serve, and above all, you care. And you are dedicated to the Shirleys of this world. And now, we intend to honor Shirley and serve patients facing serious illness and their caregivers and their clinicians by dedicating ourselves even more to advocating for a better quality of life. So today, at this National Summit, C-TAC is proudly launching our Shirley Roberson Blue Chair Fund. This fund is a reminder of the importance of listening to and believing in the dignity of every individual, including those who may lack resources or who are underserved. This Shirley Roberson Blue Chair Fund is going to do several things. First, it's going to expand C-TAC's faith community-led initiatives of high-impact care for serious illness. As we heard this morning, Shirley's quality of life was enhanced by her faith community. And we're going to fund and support more of these programs, including through advocating for policy and payment reform. And the Shirley Roberson Blue Chair Fund will also establish 2 national awards. One will be the Shirley Roberson Advocate of the Year Award, and the second will be the Shirley Roberson Clinician of the Year Award. And both these awards will honor accomplished individuals who are dedicating their lives and their talents to improve care. And I am very pleased to say that as of today, we have raised $100,000, with more to come, for those Shirley Roberson Blue Chair Fund initiatives. And our entire C-TAC team, and I know everyone at this summit, appreciates what Shirley stood for. We are proud to carry her legacy forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. So can we go to you now, the audience? We'd like to hear from you. You've heard from us. And I would like to call on, there's a special gentleman of the team here who was the palliative care doc for Shirley, Dr. David DeBono. Could we have you kick us off? And I'd also then like to hear from our Louisville delegation.
Hi, I'm David DeBono, oncologist as well as a palliative medicine physician who now works for Elevance Health. When I sort of look back at my career as a young oncologist in training, what you ultimately realize is you become good at what you do, those things that you really are doing day in and day out. And as an oncologist in training, what we were really good at was measuring tumors on CAT scans, which is fine. Someone's got to do it. But you lose the person when you do that. So when I became an oncologist, practicing in a small rural community, that's what I did best. Treat cancer, make tumors shrink. But I soon realized that I was losing the persons, particularly those patients who had incurable diseases. And actually it was my mother who actually sort of nudged me toward the idea of optimizing my end-of-life skills. And so I went to a training, it's called Education for Physicians in End-of-Life Care, and sort of felt pretty good about myself because now I understood better about palliative care and end-of-life care and tried hard to do it well. But then I moved to Detroit, Michigan to practice palliative medicine full-time in 2 different academic institutions in downtown Detroit. And found this to be a very different practice environment than a small rural community in Illinois. And then once again sort of faced this idea that maybe I wasn't doing this very well. And so I met Shirley. I was working at an NCI designated cancer center. I was their leader in supportive medicine, and I was seeing her as a palliative care physician, and she wasn't so sure about palliative care at that time.
That's true.
And I think that was something that I realized also, that we have to be humble with both oncology care and palliative care, because we really don't understand where our patients are in their journey. And so what I learned from Shirley was that we really need to sit down and listen, and hear the story of the patients and their families. And she did teach me that. And I was really touched when I came to C-TAC about 3 or 4 years ago to hear that not only did Shirley touch my life, but in some small way I touched her life. And the lesson that I took away from that is that in every single day as physicians or nurses or clinicians or pastors, etc., we meet a lot of people in various stages of their life, and unless we sit down and listen to their ordinary stories, we're going to miss their extraordinary lives. And so the legacy that Shirley left with me is that no matter what I'm doing in my career, that behind every CAT scan, behind every insurance claim, behind every research project, there are patients and families that we need to listen to. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So who heard the panel and said challenge accepted? That's what I want to know. Ben from Louisville, do you want to talk about what you're doing in response in University of Louisville on one of these faith community models?
Well, I certainly did not have the pleasure of knowing the author of The Blue Chair, but I have had the pleasure of knowing many of the people who have been inspired by her and inspired by C-TAC. This is my first time engaging with this community and this work, and I have to tell you that I am so fired up to be a part of what is going on in this room and what we are launching across the country. So thank you all so much for making this work so real. And thank you for the embodiment and the message of that chair, that we have the opportunity to really listen, to center the experience of the human, and what that means in terms of its transformative power to act. So thank you all so much for allowing me to be part of this. Part of what we are doing in Louisville is really partnering with our faith communities to engage the incredible wisdom and trust that our faith leaders have, the knowledge that they bring, but also their ability to elevate the voices of the people who are in the most need in our communities. And we are then pairing those faith leaders who we firmly believe need to be compensated for the work that they do as part of our medical establishment. They need to be compensated for the work that they do as part of our medical establishment, and then connecting them to trained advocates, community health workers, who themselves can be the advocates and the voices, can listen, can sit in that chair, and help people to navigate the system. And then we will build around that a research and financial model that takes the incentive structures that are built into the medical establishment and says, no, let's use those to benefit the people who are most in need. Let us use the structures that do exist and that are coming to exist So that's what we're hoping to do in Louisville with the incredible team that is there. So thank you all for letting us be a part of that, to pilot something here that we hope we'll be able to replicate in other parts of the country, till we can make an unassailable case that listening and walking with people is not only in the best interests of the medical establishment, but the people and the communities that we serve. So thank you all so much.
Any others? You know, what we're doing with this Blue Chair Fund is really a tapestry, and it's weaving. And we just heard one piece that's going to be woven into it. And maybe we'll do a tapestry next time. I'll give you more advice. Next year.
Our heads up.
We got a year to plan.
The key word is time.
I want to thank our panel, thank the board for their support, and thank you, because this was Shirley's team. Behind her was everybody here. So let's give everybody one last round of applause. Thank you so much.